friends. Welcome back to the practice of being human. This is part 2 of a conversation that I started last week in talking about the healing gift of voice memos. The voice memos my brother Carl and I have been exchanging really over the last year or so, and how these voice memos have become a bridge between us. And today, I want to talk about what those voice memos began to reveal. Because one of the clearest realizations that has come into focus through this exchange with him is this. We did not grow up in the same family. We definitely shared a house. We shared parents. We shared history. We shared family culture and family pain and family beauty. But we did not have the same childhood. And that might sound, I don't know, y'all might be thinking, well, yeah, of course. Or you might be thinking, what are you talking about? But here it is. This realization for me has been both sobering and freeing. Because for a long time, I think I unconsciously assumed that Carl's memory, because he has the most vivid of memories of anyone, was the more valid version. And it's not that he imposed that on me. In fact, I would ask him a lot, what do you remember? Tell me what I was like, right? So he never imposed any of this on me, but it was because he seemed more, I think, inside the family system than I was, that he had more access. He has more memory, he had more relationship, more connection, more being seen, I think, more language for certain parts of our family story. Carl is the consummate storyteller in our family. And as the storyteller, the irony isn't lost on me that I often look to him as the keeper of the story. And so what these voice memos have helped me realize is that I can both honor and appreciate his stories and know that his story is his story. He is no longer the keeper of my story. And these voice memos have helped me realize this. Mine is mine, and both stories deserve to exist. And that matters, I think, so much in families because families are systems. And systems, my friends, shape us. They direct us. They are so powerful. They shape our beliefs, our nervous systems, our roles, our reflexes, our sense of safety, our sense of worth, our sense of belonging. And yet, inside the same system, each child is having a different experience. This is about birth order and temperament and timing, visibility, expectations, wounds, protections. The parents are in a different place, their marriage is in a different place, likely finances are in a different place, stresses and stressors are different, siblings are in different places, like all of it. So you can imagine how things change and then how they're interpreted and how they are experienced by each child differently. Gabor Maté is my go-to on this because he talks so much about his understanding of saying that so much of what we later call personality is actually adaptation. Okay, and I think this is an important reminder for everyone that personality, so often what we think and who we are, is so often adaptation. It's learned ways of being and showing up in the world, and it's protective, it's armor. Okay, it's how we've learned to get our needs met. So that could look like being the achiever or the helper or the performer, the observer, the rebel, the quiet one, the good one, the invisible one. And understanding that these identities that we take on, they are often not random whatsoever. In fact, I love to call them very intelligent. They are intelligent strategies. And there are ways of learning, like, how do I survive here? How do I survive in this environment and with these people, right? How do I belong here? How do I get love? How do I avoid pain? How do I stay safe? How do I keep going? How do I be seen? That's so important. And one of the gifts of these conversations with Carl has been getting to see more clearly the adaptations, the different adaptations that each of us made in our family system, and just in terms of how we were baked and how we were wired. Carl, high energy from the beginning. He came into the world intensely, and that intensity only has carried throughout his life. He is bright, he's curious, he's disciplined, he's entertaining, he's expressive. I mean, he is just animated, and he's hungry to learn, hungry to move. He's moving all the time, and he's hungry to engage. And that is genuinely who he is. It's one of his many great gifts. He can animate a room, he can own a room, he can tell a story, he can create an experience, and he can bring an energy and delight and momentum into a space that really is remarkable. And in our family, in the family in which we grew up, many of those qualities were mirrored for him. They were celebrated, they were elevated. So, all of those things, he got so much oxygen, so much attention because of it, so much of the validation, right? That's where he also, I think, his drive, his discipline, his love of learning, his achievement, his doing, all of these things that my parents had in spades as well, right? Those were the qualities that my parents recognized so readily and valued. And Carl got reflected in ways that I did not. That doesn't mean that he wasn't wounded, right? It doesn't mean that he had this easy breezy childhood. In fact, the opposite. It doesn't mean his life was easier. It just means that his gifts were more maybe legible inside our family system, and mine were not. I was more relational, I was more sensitive, more perceiving, I was more attuned to energy, I was more likely to observe than to take center stage, okay? And I was likely to connect deeply one to one, more so than shining in a group or even being comfortable in a group, because I felt like I was always reading the room, right? So I was more likely to absorb than to assert. So a spotlight on me felt very, very uncomfortable and unsafe. I needed to feel a sense of attunement with the person that I was talking to. And it's not lost on me how much I love my one-to-one and why my private practice continues to be the bread and butter of my work, my business. And yet I've been expanding into talks and groups and presentations and small group work because it's also where you can still create intimacy and being seen and known and loved and met because there's interaction, there's a knowing. But it's taken time for me to develop those gifts. What I understand now about how I learned to be and what I learned to be growing up, I don't say any of this with shame or blame, okay? But I don't anymore because I can see now that those were the gifts for me as well. Like those were gifts too. They just weren't the gifts most clearly maybe mirrored back to me when I was growing up. And again, that matters because when a child's actual nature, and think about yourself, think about if you're a parent, think about your own children. When a child's actual nature is not accurately reflected, that child often grows up feeling almost vaguely wrong. What's wrong with me? Why don't I fit in? Why am I seeing these things? Why am I experiencing these things? And no one else is naming it. No one else is saying it. No one else is acknowledging it. What is it about me? And maybe I'm too much, right? But again, that was experienced in a way that I felt something about me was wrong. And today I can say, not at all, right? I might have felt invisible at times. I might have felt less than, not quite enough, and somehow maybe not quite like the rest. But I think that was part of my experience and a very holy and sacred part of my experience because it gave me the gift of being on the periphery, of being the witness and the observer and soaking in all of these things and learning to understand family systems and learning how to speak truth to power and to trust more and more and more my own intuition and voice. But again, I adapted to my growing up and in my family system by not taking too up too much space, okay? And I was always kind of tracking and observing and learning what to do and not to do based on what everyone else was doing. And I was reading the room. I was attaching deeply in relationship to relationship. I was always, I mean, the joke is that I had a boyfriend from like sixth grade on, but which is not really true, but kind of true. And I was fortunate because I actually dated some really good dudes in all of that. And I think those relationships helped me feel seen. And I think now, not all of them were like, I was messy and had a whole lot of my own stuff I was bringing into it, as did they. But I now look back and think I was so lucky in those relationships. There was a lot of good stuff in there. But I learned that that's where I would go because I wasn't checking in to the family system. And I was, at times I'd get quieter inside myself. I had recently had a coach tell me, she talked to me about dissociation, and she said, you know what? You're really good at that. And I said, really? I am? And I'm thinking, I dissociate? How? And because now I think of dissociation, I'm like, that's one of our greatest coping strategies, right? Became one of my greatest allies at a time that I needed it to kind of check out, to almost disengage from the feeling piece, from the body, and just be more in the head and kind of taking things in more intellectually and conceptually, or just completely shutting down, numbing out. But I see it as a brilliant adaptation. Today, I don't want to be dissociating from my life. I want to be in it. I want to be present. I want to be all in, and I am. But to understand that part of me, I'm like, oh, right, of course, that's what I did. And to have it named has been so freeing. And then I may have been able to see it at the times that maybe I tend to lean in that direction. And then I'm able to bring myself back without any shame, without any blame, but with awareness. It's so incredible. And all of these audios and just the work has helped me see these things, understand these things. And I think that's what's so, so beautiful in all of this. It's these voice memos, again, have been holy and sacred and healing for me, healing balm in so many ways. And they have been helping me go back to me, younger me, and bring her with me and say, I see you. That younger me, that girl on the edges, right? The one who felt so much and understood so little at the time. That girl who absorbed so much without language, right? I didn't have the language. I just was seeing and putting things together and making meaning out of all of that. And it was that girl whose gifts were real and deep and enormous, but not always mirrored and validated. I see her and I will not abandon her anymore. And in fact, I have a picture of me right above my computer in my office that is me when I was like 7 or 8 years old. And it's just my face and it's my eyes. And I look at her each day and I'm like, I see you. I got you. We're doing this. Let's go. This is what it is. And that's been a super huge healing part of my journey as well. And for those of you out there, if you have a picture of yourself when you're younger, where you can see yourself so clearly, and it's almost like you can look into your eyes and be like, I got you. I see you. I love you. Put that up. You know what? Put it up somewhere, or at least frame it, or have it where you cross her path or his path every day, if possible, because that's a reminder of how I intentionally want to show up in my life each day. I want to be fully embodied and intentional around that. So someone was asking me about like how I've been doing all of this work. They're like, why are you living in the past? And I'm like, I'm not interested in living in the past. I'm interested in no longer leaving certain parts of myself behind there. That's what I'm interested in. And that is different. I am not going back to blame, to shame. I'm not going back to stay stuck and to keep building evidence for a story that is no longer serves me. I'm going back to say, hey, I see you, and I'm reclaiming my experience, my younger me, and I'm not leaving her behind anymore. And that is what healing feels like to me in this season. So returning with enough consciousness, right? Enough love, enough humility, and enough safety to begin to understand. And these audios have helped me do this. And it's like beginning to say, hey, oh, that's why I do that. Or that's why groups feel so hard. Or that's why one-to-one connection feels like home to me. That's why I question myself. That's why I read the room so intensely. That's why I attach so deeply to relationship. That's why I call myself an introvert. I identified as that for so long. I'm not an introvert. I appreciate my time alone. I love people. I love connection. That was just where I learned to be safe, right? To shore up my energy and then to go back out into the world. And now it's like, I don't need that in the same way because I'm not split off from parts of myself anymore. And in looking to Carl for being the keeper of my memory, I no longer need him to be that for me as well. But understanding why I did and understanding all of this has been so important because I don't think this is indulgent understanding. I think it's liberating. And when you understand the why for you, for anyone in that you love in your life, you stop making it a character flaw. You stop deciding that you are just too much or someone else is too much, or you think they're too sensitive or you're too sensitive or dramatic or weak or not enough. Context, context, context. When we understand context, we understand behavior. We understand why we adapted as we did. That changes everything. And I am such a believer in context. It doesn't excuse harm. It doesn't erase pain, but context does create compassion. It makes room for healing. And that's also been so true in how I've come to see Carl. Like, I was angry at him because I felt like he got everything. He just took it all and lapped it up and he was good to go. And now I understand that he's not just the one who got more, right? He was also the one who carried certain expectations, certain projections, identifications, certain burdens. He carried those things, and he's had to do his work later in his life to find his path forward and to shed what no longer serves him. He was so deeply connected to my parents in a way that was beautiful, but it was also costly for him. And I can see now that truth. I didn't understand that. I didn't hold space for that. He's had to do the deep work too, and to separate what was truly his from what he absorbed from them. And that matters, right? All of these little things, big things, they matter because it makes sense that the child who is most mirrored in a family, those who are, and that might be you or maybe one of your kids, they may also have the hardest time separating. So it makes sense that the child whose gifts are most affirmed in a family system may also become the one who feels most responsible for carrying family identity forward. And that is no small or light mantle to carry. That is no small feat. It's not less painful, it's just different. It's different pain, and it's a different carrying. And I think one of the tenderest truths in all of this is realizing that each one of us, and for Carl and me, each of us paid a price for how we adapted, how we were situated in our family system. He paid one, I paid another. And our siblings, God love them, Mark, Greta, Kurt, Carl and I, they paid theirs too. Same family, different costs. And that is such an important thing to remember, that no one gets out of a family system untouched. And I know this to be true for me, and I also know this to be true for my kiddos. As they are getting older and they have more of a voice and they're able to push back, and the more I do this work, the more I think it opens the door for them to feel the freedom to say, hey, not okay, or no, or not for me, or whatever it is, right? It has shifted our family dynamic because of the work that I've been able to do and to understand so that I'm not passing this inherited pain and generational patterns that otherwise, would just keep going. If I didn't create awareness around this, how would they really know? I don't know. Maybe they'd figure it out, but I'd much rather help that process by taking accountability for what is mine and then to not keep passing down what I've passed down. And that's also true in my relationship with Craig Brummel in our marriage. And I'm going to do an episode on this at some point around that. But for now, we're going to keep this with Carl and me and our audio memos. I think the healing piece, from where I see it and understand it to be, it's less about deciding who had it worst and more about becoming honest enough to name, like, hey, this is what shaped me. This is what I carried. What about you? This is how I learned to survive. This is where I lost myself. This is where I found myself. And this is what I do not want to keep unconsciously handing down. And that part feels really alive for me Because one of my deepest desires in this season of life is not to unconsciously pass pain, fear, shame, scarcity, self-abandonment, or old family limitations. I don't want to do it in my marriage. I don't want to do it with my children. I don't want to do it in my work. And I don't want to continue doing it inside myself. I want to metabolize what is unfinished in me, and then I want to understand it, hold it, soften it, and then move it with more honesty. And as I move with it more honestly, I can live with more truth. And with more truth, more freedom, more love, more peace. It's not perfect. We're not going for perfect. It's not about that at all. But it is about living more free. And I think that is why this has all felt so sacred. This exchange, these audio memos, God bless them, right? They have not just been this like nostalgic or reflective kind of process. They've become this part of the metabolizing of things. And they've helped me stop treating everything like what was wrong with me, or this was wrong, or this was bad, or why. And they've helped me see a pattern. They've helped me see protection. They've helped me see how family systems shape us. I see this every day, all day with my clients. And I see it in myself. I see it in my kids. I see it in my husband and his family. And what this work learns us to start to come to and to say and to really hold is that we're allowed to reclaim our own memory. We're allowed to trust our own knowing. I'm allowed to stop borrowing someone else's version of my life. And God bless you, Carl. You have an incredible version, but mine is mine. Yours is yours. And I'm allowed to love my family and still name what hurt. That is not betrayal. It's honesty. It's real. That's love. I think that's unconditional love. And I'm allowed to hold beauty and I'm allowed to hold rupture in the same hand. Because here's the thing. None of this means my family was uniquely messed up or that, my parents were bad people or whatever may be. None of this is about casting blame. It's honestly, the more I sit with people and listen to stories and I coach day in and day out and I listen and I hear and I study and I learn and the work that I'm doing, the more I know this to be true. Everyone has a story. Every family has its beauty and its blind spots. And I tell my clients this all the time. It is the end. To be able to hold that tension, to name it, and then to kind of engage with it, to dance with it and see what else can be. That's the key, right? So it's being able to see the and of the beauty and the blind spots, the tenderness and the pain, the gifts and its limits. It's the way of loving and it's the ways of the wounding. How that was maybe practiced, played out, manifest in your families. So much of what we carry into adulthood is not because anyone was bad or malicious or meaning to hurt us. It's really because systems are imperfect. People are imperfect. People are wounded. And love, sure, that is often present, but it's not always skillful, right? It is not unconditional. People pass on what they have not yet healed. And that too is part of being human. There's something I've learned from Esther over the years that I love and I think about in this context, which is in relationship, we are always navigating love and injury, closeness and distance, connection and autonomy. And that is true in relationship and it's true in families as well. You can be deeply loved and deeply unseen. You can be grateful and grieving. You can honor your parents and still need to tell the truth. And you can love the hell out of your sibling and still realize they had a different experience of the same home. And theirs was theirs, yours is yours. These are not contradictions. They're the complexity and the nuance of what it is to be human. When we hold it, my friends, it is one of the doors to healing. So, what do I feel now? Having walked through this season with Carl and these audio memos, the one word that comes up for me over and over is gratitude. Gratitude for his willingness, his heart, his memory, his blessing, the way he keeps showing up for himself. Gratitude that we do not need to be the same or see it the same way to be close. Gratitude that these exchanges between us have helped me put puzzle pieces together that I don't think I could ever have put together. And that's in thanks to Carl. There's gratitude that love can survive truth. Gratitude that I'm here now. I'm so grateful to be in this life right here, right now, awake, conscious, and I just want to get more and more awake. I want to stay and be right here and soak it in and show up with that awakeness, right? That knowing, that consciousness, awake enough to do this work. It's how to human in a way that sign me up. And there is gratitude that there is still time to do this. And there's time to understand and reclaim and soften, tell the truth, and to stop abandoning myself and reclaiming that little girl, bringing her with me, and never ever leaving her behind again. And that feels like grace. So if there's one thing I hope you listeners take from this episode, it is this. You are allowed to reclaim your own story, even if someone else remembers it differently. Even if you were the quieter one, your gifts maybe were less visible. Maybe you spent years doubting yourself. Maybe you even adapted by disappearing. And even if you have right now what is a felt sense that something mattered and something shaped you and something in you wants language, even if all you have is that, that's about reclaiming your story. You're allowed. You are allowed to tell the truth about what was true for you, to place behavior in context. That is key. That is so important. Always look beneath the behavior. Why the behavior? Not why the thing on the surface. What's below it? It's like Gabor Maté's words. Don't ask why the addiction. Ask why the pain. It's the same idea. Don't ask why the behavior. Ask why. What does that make sense? Why would that make sense in this person, in this situation? That gives us such a different understanding. And you're allowed to place behavior in context, allowed to explore the why. You're allowed to grieve what was not mirrored, okay? What you didn't get validated in you. You can do that today, and you can grieve what wasn't. You're allowed to honor what was beautiful. You're allowed to stop moralizing your adaptations. And you are allowed to grow beyond the role you were assigned, my friends. We are all allowed to become more whole. And maybe most of all, you're allowed to return to the younger you with fresh eyes and a full heart. And it's not to rescue her. It's not to perfect the past. And it's not to create a prettier story, but it is to say, I see you now. I understand more now. I am not leaving you there. You are coming with me. And that, to me, is healing. And that, in many ways, is what these voice memos with my brother, thank you, Carl, have been giving me for the last year of my life. So may we continue to find those ways back and a way through and a way inward and a way home. Thank you, Carl, and thank you for your heart, your memory, your honesty, your willingness to let my truth sit beside yours. Thanks for helping me understand more of what was true for me. That has meant the world. Thank you for walking with me in this. It's kind of fun, and it's delightful to receive your messages. I always look forward to them. And thank you for the unbreakable bond of being the youngest two in our family. Thank you for being the medicine. It's all good. Thanks for all of you and each and every one of you for listening to this and for being here with me in this conversation. And I hope that you will pick up that phone and you will send an audio memo to someone that is safe and that these conversations or a conversation needs to be had, but requires some space and grace and a little bit of room. So, my friends, take care of you. Thanks for being here with me in this conversation. This one feels tender and it's holy and human. And I hope somewhere in it, something in you feels a little more seen too. So much love.